Holy Spirit. Christ is among us. Well, I know that was a little bit jarring. It's not Pascha or Holy Week. It's not next month, but we're going to spend a lot of time talking about the cross. We have three, in particular, instances where we would talk about the cross of length in September that becomes a major theme of the month. And so we might listen to particularly that last reading. We say, well, what is this all about? This is August. And I think in a sense that is one reason why this reading was appointed for today. It's because in August we may have reached a level or a period of time when we begin to be a little bit lazy. When we begin to put our thoughts into other things, to not focus as much as we have focused. And so we come to the first day of August, and we all of a sudden have, we look at the calendar, we look at what's going on, there are all these things going on, and they are speaking to us of our own spiritual health. Today, for example, the reason we heard the reading from the cross is that today is where we celebrate. It's kind of a minor holiday, but it's the procession of the life-giving cross. Now, I've always liked this. Since I first read about it, I've always liked what they're commemorating here. And here's what they're commemorating. It started in Constantinople during the first millennium. August in the ancient world was one of the most dangerous times of the year. And the reason it was dangerous was not because of, marauding armies or anything like that. It's because of sickness. It was because of illness. It's because of bacteria. It's because of plague. And in August, when the weather is hot and the sanitation in the area is not what we would consider to be what we would hope for, and it's not at all unusual for people to become sick and to die. It was very common in the ancient world, and it was common everywhere. Constantinople certainly was one place, but think of any place you can think of where it is hot and the sanitation is not good. And you have a place where death walks about among the people who live there. So in Constantinople one year, somebody had the idea, I presume it was whoever the patriarch was at the time, said, we should, starting on the beginning of the Dormition fast, all right, remember all these things are kind of coming together, we should go and we should take the cross and we should carry it through the city. And we should cleanse the city through the power of the cross. And so they did that for the first 14 days of August. They marched through the different neighborhoods and the different quarters of Constantinople, and as they went, they prayed and they threw holy water, and the cross went with them, and the plague went away. Worked. And it would make such an impression on people that it wasn't that long before this was being done everywhere in the Orthodox world. St. Gregory Palamas of the 14th century talks about this being done in Thessalonica. We know it happened throughout the Slavic world. We know it happened throughout pretty much all of the Orthodox world, that this idea that was divinely given, I would say, to somebody, to have this procession of the cross for the first 14 days of August was inspired. It became something that became a thing. And so we remember it today. It's like as I say, this is not a major feast day. It's not like the other days of the cross that we have throughout the year. But what it reminds us of is this. It reminds us of the enormous power that the cross has. And not only in the theoretical sense that we often talk about the cross as being an instrument of salvation and the ways in which we speak of it during Holy Week and during the period of time after Pascha and in September when we have all that time devoted to the cross. But it has this power for us individually. You're all wearing a cross around your neck. Why are you doing this? It's because the cross has power. It is because the cross is the instrument of our salvation. Have you ever considered the idea that if they can walk through Constantinople and later on walk through Moscow and walk through St. Petersburg and walk through Thessalonica and walk through Athens and walk through Belgrade and walk through all the cities of the Orthodox world carrying this cross, that perhaps our recognition of the cross that we carry has its own healing power, its own salvific power for us individually. What if we took the time to deliberately, in our minds and in our prayer and in our thoughts, to walk through the neighborhoods of our own soul? I don't know about you, but I've got some pretty bad neighborhoods in my soul. I think most people probably did. If we walk through ourselves, walk through our neighborhoods, carrying this cross, what can happen? And so in August, the first day of August every year, we commemorate this. We only really talk about it during those times when August 1 falls on a Sunday, which has only happened a couple of times, I guess, since we opened 12 years ago. But it becomes something that we should consider. Well, but it's not just that that's happening today. Something else that's happening today that you haven't heard anything about, we didn't sing anything about, is that in the year 988, it's the baptism of Ruth. On this day in the year 988, the entire pagan country of Rus, what we know of as Russia now, became Christian. When Vladimir had his people come to the river Kiev, and everybody was baptized. Now, obviously, it took a little while for that to settle in, but it was the beginning of something. It was the beginning of something marvelous. It was the beginning of something that, in its own way, has been the source of many, many miracles. So we have the baptism of Ruth, which also is commemorated today, from a year over 1,000 years ago. We today begin the Dormition fast, which is when we have this fast. It's somewhat similar to the fast that we keep during Great Lent, and we do it in commemoration of what Theotokos was doing during this time, when she was informed that she would die, and she should prepare herself. Now, for the Theotokos, this was like the best news she'd heard in a long time. You say, that sounds kind of weird. But what she knew is that meant that she would be reunited with her son. And so for 2 weeks, she prepared herself for her death. And we know on the 15th, we commemorate her dormition, her falling asleep. And so we have this as well. You see, there's a lot going on. There's a lot of things that during this period of time should speak to us and should say to us, I should look at my soul. I should look at my soul and see if there are things in it that are bad. I should look at my soul and I should think about my death and how should I prepare myself, whenever that may be. Tomorrow, 20 or 30 or 40, 60 years from now, who knows? We are called to commemorate that and to remember that, and we should think about the miracle of the baptism of Ruth and recall our own baptism and how that, in fact, has changed us. That, in fact, has made us into the people that we were not at one time. And then in the midst of all of this, next Friday, we celebrate the Feast of the Transfiguration, where a few of the apostles went up on the mountain with Jesus, and he showed himself, if you will. He revealed his glory and his power to the extent that they could handle that, which was not the full extent. They fall on the ground, their faces are in the dirt, they just cannot really look at it. But Peter, of course, responds in the way in which we should always respond. And Peter says, let's stay up here, we'll build some huts, this will be great. This is fantastic. You see, in a lot of ways, in a lot of undercurrents, in a lot of ways, we are told and we are given clues as we enter into the dog days, as we enter into the last part of summer, as we start thinking ahead to New Year's, which, is September 1 in the church, right? So it's not that far off. We start thinking ahead that this is the perfect time to look inward. It is the perfect time to review the state of our own soul. It is the perfect time to remember that Theotokos preparing herself for death and reunion simultaneously. It is looking at the way in which an entire people, an entire nation can be changed and can be transformed in the course of a single day. It is a time when we remember the cross that we wear, the reason that we wear it. So all of us should take a little time in the heat of the summer over the next couple of weeks. We should thank God for this. We should be thankful for great gifts we have been given. We should be thankful for the opportunities that we have. We should be thankful that we ourselves, wearing our cross, can heal ourselves through the help of the cross and through Christ, can find ourselves healed and those around us healed as well. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, glory to Jesus Christ.